Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound, a living archive for Nordic music. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today I am so happy to welcome the bewitching voices of Songleikr, Ingrid Aune Falch, and Maria Franz. Ingrid, Maria, welcome. It is great to have you here on the Nordic Sound.
Thank you. Oh,
That was the first awkward silence.
Do you want me to? We could. Any of this?
No,
is
no, no. It's just I'm a bit slow.
No, you're fine.
You shouldn't cut this out either, because it's we're supposed to show our personalities. So I'm gonna show mine now, and then I was like, you asked me to introduce myself, so I will. Just like my head was going, what do I say? I mean, you pronounced my last name wrong. It's Falk, but that's okay.
Oh no.
But that's everybody does that.
All right.
And then so it's a Falken.
Falk. All right.
Word. Yeah. And then I am singing, of course. That's why we're here. Me and Maria have been singing together for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I live at a farm in Norway. I have 3 kids. I work as the CEO of a theater. And then I do music whenever life allows it, or when I fight hard to get it done.
Awesome. Beautifully said. We all know that feeling. And now, Maria, you want to say hi so everyone can put a voice to a name when they're listening?
Yeah, for sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Franz. I am from Norway, but I live currently in Denmark right now, actually in Amalie Myrku's music room, which I'm proud to be sitting in at the moment. And yes, yeah, I'm singing. I'm a vocalist. I'm a musician. Known Ingrid since she was 17, and I don't know how old I was. I just know that you were very, very young, and that
you were older than me, and like cool.
She's selling you out already.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm singing in Songleikr and Heilung. I have one more project called Jameson, but it's not very active at the moment because a certain other project is kind of taking all the time, which is also a little bit sad for Songleikr sometimes. But yeah, same as Ingrid, when we fight really hard to make it happens, and then we're all very happy.
Yeah.
That is beautifully said. You know, a lot of musicians listening will definitely know the feeling of when life gets away and you do really have to fight to make time for the music. So with that said, you know, you guys got, I guess the best place to start this conversation would be to sort of follow up on Midgardsblot, where I know that's where a lot of people listening to the Nordic Sound probably encountered you guys for the first time live, if not ever. So you guys put on a great show at Midgardsblot. What was it like for you to be back performing on what I understand to be your home turf? Ingrid, if you want to go first.
Well, home turf for me, it's Maria is from actually that exact place, but I've also been there a lot of times doing Viking events and stuff. So it always feels very safe and familiar, I guess. And you go on stage and you kind of, there's a lot of familiar faces. But I really just, I think, Maria, you probably want to answer that question because it's your home.
You pointed out where we could see your home from the stage, which I thought was a bold move.
Yeah. It's so surreal for me to stand there and literally see the streets where I grew up. And I loved growing up there. I lived there until I was 13. And we moved from there on my 13th birthday, which I will never forgive my parents for because I didn't celebrate my birthday for many years after that. I didn't protest because I loved it there. And Midgardsblot and the grave mounds next to the festival area has always held a lot of mystique and been a source of, the stories that you tell when you're a child and we played Viking queens and kings, and we're kind of, just surrounded by this wonderful atmosphere. And then growing up and getting to work with history in a very hands-on way through Viking reenactment, where I met Ingrid at Borre several times at the Viking markets
This
there.
where we met the first time, of course. Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
It holds so much of our common history. So both Heilung and Songleikr exists because
it's originate. And also I want to add that before Midgardsblot, the first year, Runa, the festival manager, she arranged something called Eidsivablot, which was in a different location close by. And she just had this kind of idea, like, I want to make something metal, something Vikings. And me and her met a year or two before that. And then she called me and she said, hey, you do some Viking stuff. I would like some Vikings. And I said, yeah, call this and this person. And that's kind of how the concept got together. So this year, actually, Runa thanked me for, being a part of the original plan, like making it happen. So I was there at the first one, the Midgardsblot, performing and singing with Benny and Gustav, the Får du ikke borte for nordavinden. It's a very different time. But yeah, it's a special festival. It's a special group of people making it.
Absolutely. Yeah, me and Maria were talking before the record button got pressed about how it has this addictive quality to it. When people go to Midgardsblot, they kind of have to go back again and again because there's just this hole in the
community. Yeah, but it's a community thing because you also said that, Maria, in the other interview we did, like you can actually walk around like a normal person and be you're part of some it's like a mentality of the people that go there. It's very friendly, it's very caring, it's very like their hearts are in the right place. So that's like a big compliment to the festival organizers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. It's the only time I felt that it was like the old Maria would have thrown myself into the jam around the bonfire at the beach, because this is how I grew up. This is also Ingrid and me have always been around the fire, singing and jamming and being completely in the midst of all of that. But every time I'm at Midgardsblot, I'm like, because now everybody knows who we are, it doesn't feel right to take the scene. And besides that, we already had played one concert that day. So it wasn't a bit like, maybe somebody else can, get their turn and take the focus and be in it and feel that energy. If we did it, it would be, we would just steal the thunder, which is weird to have to hold yourself back because of that. But yeah, it's a wonderful tradition, the bonfires at the beach. I'm so happy for everyone who gets to live out their dream of just dancing and drumming.
Yeah, for me, what they reminded me of was, me being from the East Coast of the United States, is we're very used to having bluegrass jams or fiddle and guitar and banjo around the fire at night. And it was so funny to me, that sort of was a part of growing up and having that sort of gathering, that musical gathering around a fire. And it is funny, I actually haven't thought about it in that way before, that going to Norway is very much the same thing, just different instruments and a different music style in a lot of ways.
Temperature.
And it's way nicer in Norway than the foothills of Appalachia, where the humidity will just melt you. But yeah, no, it's a very well taken point that it is part of a larger tradition of making music around a fire. But there's something about the way that it's approached to Midgardsblot, where the everyone wants to play Viking or something less esoteric, or I guess around the fire, and it gives a lot of people an opportunity to express that different side of themselves that they usually won't have the opportunity to in their daily lives. And
like a lot of people don't even sing or think that they can make a sound with a drum, and then suddenly you're there and you're just tossing yourself into the fun of rhythm, and
yep.
Oh wow, I have a voice, great. And nobody gives a shit if it's like perfect. It's just
yep.
Your voice is welcome, and then let's go. And it's so deliberating, and the vibrations also from the voice, it's so calming, for the nervous system and everything. So that's what creates memories that gets ingrained like into your core when you use your voice body. So if you go to a shaman in the forest in Brazil or something, I don't know, and I haven't been feeling well, the first thing he will ask is, how long has it been since you were singing and dancing?
Wow.
So
yeah,
Midgardsblot should be like every weekend.
It should be. I think we'd all be a lot happier, because Ingrid, your point is very well taken, that we don't sing enough. And I'm of the mind, maybe it's a little idealistic, but I'm of the mind that maybe the world would be a little bit of a better place if we did. So that's why I think that Midgardsblot, what I tell people is, or at least what I hear from, because a lot of people do sort of hear about Midgardsblot from me, because I'm a big face for it in promoting it to Americans at the very least. And a lot of them ask, what's it like? Are the bands good? And I sort of have to tell them, when you get there, you'll realize it's not really about the lineup. It's not really about the programmed events. Where the magic really happens, at least in my opinion, is around the fire, when everyone's
in the
allowed
community,
to free themselves.
with the people, and the people you get to know.
Yep.
And yeah. Mm.
Yeah, there's nothing like walking through that Viking village and feeling like you're at home.
Yeah. Actually, and also I had my mom there and my sisters. I had my home in the Viking village, and also Ingrid, of course, because it's also her family. If not in blood, then in everything else.
Your mom is my mom.
Yes,
she knows.
My mom is your mom. Absolutely, she loves you. She says hi, by the way. And it's that. But I think you find familiarity around any fireplace if you come gently over, and you feel welcome very quickly into people's hearth. Is that the name?
Yeah,
around people's hearths. It's it's a lovely combination of camp life and music, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess getting back to specifically talking about your guys' performance, is what really struck me about seeing you guys live. I've been listening to you forever. Oh, it's a pup. I thought it was a cat
it's
at first.
Luna.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, this is Luna.
That's worth. Hi. Oh, that's precious.
Yeah,
my parrot isn't allowed in videos anymore because he screams over me. When he was a little guy, he would sit quietly on my shoulder. We're all sharing our pets.
Yeah.
I'm not taking you to the stables to look at my horses, because that would be weird, right?
Oh man, fine, I guess. Yeah, but so I've been listening to you guys for quite a while, because I have for a long time been into that old I will call it a pre-Heilung and pre-Vardruna style of medieval music. Like the Virelai, the Songleikr, the early Faun. That style of music I've always listened to for a very long time. And so, but this was my first time seeing you guys live. And what really struck me about seeing you perform live was how deeply you embedded storytelling into your performance, which I love as a musicologist who studies the way that music has been used to keep stories alive and all of that. And that very interactive, active aspect of music performance that's kind of been lost in the current dynamic of performer is on stage and you sit and you absorb it with very little interaction. I loved how you guys seamlessly brought the storytelling of those old ballads into your performance at Midgardsblot. It really broke down that stage barrier that tends to happen. And Ingrid, considering your experience in theater, I want to ask sort of your perspective first. Like, what is sort of your mentality or your philosophy going into that very special way that you do weave storytelling into the music performance?
There's really no alternative for me. We talked about this a couple of times. Like Songleikr is not really a main stage band, because if it's too big with too big of a crowd, we lose what makes it special. We lose that feedback loop, the connection. We've turned down gigs that are too big. I've done that with several of my projects, other projects as well, because it's not fitting. And actually, when we heard that we were headlining, we were a bit pissed off. Because but we were, because like, what the fuck, are we gonna seriously play at 11 at the evening on this big stage? Because it's a very hard task to keep the audience where we like them to be, like actively listening. But as far as I could hear from stage, it was completely silent. People were laughing in the right place, singing in the right place. And that's amazing, considering the extremely long breaks between songs, because we have to tune instruments, and people were so patient. And we didn't even have time to finish the set because of all the talking. But like, it's a very big question, like, considering my background from theater, I would say, whenever you stand in front of people, if you're doing just a talk at work, presenting some research, if you are, what we're doing now, there's always a level of self-representation. You can go mildly, you can go politician, you can go full-blown Shakespeare actor, or you can go Heilung, Maria is a persona on stage with Heilung. It's completely different. At the same time, it's Maria, of course. I don't want to, you can explain that later. But for me, it's always been important that it's Ingrid going on stage with Maria. We're friends. This is it. It's honest, it's transparent, and it's real. We don't like cheat with anything. There's no, what's it called, the sounds in the background that you can kind of
loops or pads, or
it's nothing like this. And if something goes wrong, it goes wrong, and then you just have to like fucking live with it and move on. That's folk music. Because we do live in different countries, and we have time to rehearse. Of course, we did rehearse before the gig, but at the same time, you have to be secure in yourself as a musician and in your relationship with the other people on stage, so that we're here to hold this space and do our best. But that's the only thing we can promise. But I would love to hear Maria's thoughts on this, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, storytelling is such a big part of folk music, as Ingrid said. So it's never a question to avoid it. But we have vocalized it together, that we really adore that the choice of folk songs, the folk songs that we have chosen in the sets that we play, are always, almost without exception, about murder, rape, being eaten by an animal.
And the songs we make ourselves too, they're also quite nasty.
They follow the same kind of nasty route. So, and Ingrid and me, we love to kind of, to soften the blow with a little dose of humor. And I think we just found this way of ping-ponging with each other around these themes that we're singing about, which just gives me a lot of joy. And playing with Songleikr is so joyful when you have a project like I have with Heilung, which is huge. Like, you don't really do mistakes. There's a lot of pressure. You don't have a day where you feel, I'm a little bit like, no, I don't really feel like it. No, sorry, my grandma died. Sorry, still have to be on stage. Like, there's no way around it. But if this happened with Songleikr, I could go on stage and be like, my grandmother died. I would love to sing a song to honor her memory and be myself and breathe in that sorrow.
And if you cried, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. With Heilung, I use myself in a different way. I have a mask, but then, then I get it out in the times where I'm screaming or moving, so it's physical. But so I'm still myself, but it's two different aspects of me, very, very various. And I need both of them in my life so badly. Like I wouldn't be able to be sane if I didn't have both Songleikr and Heilung in my life.
I love the way that both of you sort of put it, that not only does it keep that folk music atmosphere alive, right, in the sense that you are allowed to be human while you are also performing, but also it is terrifying being musically naked on stage, right? The way that
lovely.
It is lovely too. Like the way that Christopher was putting so much attention into making sure that every string on those mandolins was tuned, because if it's not tuned at the beginning of the song, that's gonna haunt him the whole song.
And it's gonna haunt us too, because we're gonna.
I love it, but I have to say, one of my favorite parts is you guys are talking about balancing humor with it. Is you were all like, how do we kill time while Christopher tunes? And Nick was just like, you guys are overthinking it. Yell skull. And you yell skull with the drink in your hand, and that killed like 2 minutes. And that was just so genius on his part. How do you get a Midgardsblot crowd to give you a few minutes? You just hold up a beer and yell skull. It was beautiful. And that's
we love Nico. We love him.
I love Nicholas very much. He's great.
He just fits very well into the concepts, because he can, like, speaking of ping pong, he just kind of picks up on, I'm needed to jump in and do Nico, and then he's great.
Yeah, he's such a wonderful guy. But that whole atmosphere of being able to just be yourselves in a way that maybe, Maria, sometimes you feel like it's still yourself in Heilung, but it's very much more choreographed or orchestrated. Maybe that's a better way to put it. So no, these thoughts all around are really great, because that spirit of folk music definitely comes through in your guys' performance. And you definitely left a lot of impression on people, because as someone who's been a champion of that style of Nordic music for some time, I love seeing what bands like you guys do to get people to appreciate sort of that side of Nordic music, like the drunken revelry of just playing some string instruments around a fire. It really is great. So I guess the elephant in the room here that I want to address is, how did you guys get into medieval music so early? Because I assume that, at least from what I've picked up so far, it was just around you. You mentioned growing up and there's just campfires and bonfires and there's music going on. But medieval music and this style of music isn't exactly what teenagers get into, right? So I would love to hear any sort of anecdotes or maybe any points of entry for how you got into this. What really made this music resonate with you, I guess. And Maria, if you want to kick us off, I would love to hear how you got into medieval music when you were younger.
Yeah, and I think I would shy from the word medieval, although you're probably correct. Most of the ballads we sing are from medieval times, but it's just that it's so much with the medieval time period that it really irks me. So
no, I really love that you pointed that out, because a lot of times as a musicologist, I have to sort of pick my battles when it comes to what words do I use, because I just know that most people listening are going to know what I mean when I say medieval. But if we could get into, I would actually love for you to sort of maybe break that bubble and echo chamber. I will give you guys the microphone.
Maybe that's next question, because it's good, because it's about the tonality, really.
Cool.
But yeah,
then also, let's do that.
Yes, yeah, but answer your question. It's a cool question, and I remember very specifically the first time I got hooked on, I would call it maybe world music. It is also a horrible word. But the thing is, I got into Viking reenactment as an 11-year-old. And when I was 12 or 13, the group that I joined in Borre, we traveled to a Viking market in Sweden, in Hög. And in the big longhouse there in the evening, there was a guy from Africa playing a djembe in the Viking house. I had never heard anyone play that instrument before. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that little teenage Maria was drawn to it like the moth to a flame. And I was simply just standing there gawking for like the duration of his playing, until in the end he looked at me and like, would you like to try? And I'm like, yes. I got the drum and I knew how to play it. I just knew how to play it. And it blew my mind.
I'm getting chills.
I've never touched it before. And it's funny. It's sad Chris isn't here. It's his birthday today. He's
I saw that.
Oh, it is.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Chris. But Chris has a little bit aversion against djembe, but this is actually the instrument that got me tuned into there's something else than pop music out there. Because you are so right, Jameson, as especially as a teenager, you get into what you're introduced to, and what the radio plays or what's put on most big venues in the town that you grew up in isn't necessarily anything, or at least it wasn't in the 80s, that's for sure. There was very, very slim pickings of anything else than what the charts were introducing to you.
Life is guided by ABBA.
Yes, exactly. So I think just to open that door a little bit on ajar, and then being lucky enough to be in the Viking community and seeing this avalanche of things coming into that door, like Garmarna and Hedningarna, this beautiful Swedish groups, Jallarhorn. So from then on to then start diving into, okay, but what is there in our own national treasure box of folk music? And then starting to dig out. And Ingrid, I would love to hear your take on this, because you've been so good at digging up songs from a very young age.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of the same story with me. Like, I joined reenactment early, and also I wanted to add, Maria, to your story, something that you receive a lot of input in that community, but also people saw you as a singer. Like you were praised for the voice you have, which is not, a standard pop voice. Like, you would never sign up for this fucking Idol or X Factor. So that's also something I just wanted to add, that because I remember very clearly, like you as very, like, walking around at a young age before you were professional, people were like, oh, there's Maria, because of your voice. So I wanted to add that. But yeah, I mean, I basically love the dirty songs.
I could tell.
I'm not talking about the like gory stuff. I'm talking about the like the stuff like the vulgar shit from the past. Like they could really write some pretty out there without saying the foul words,
Tripping on a stick in the woods. That was one of my favorite euphemisms that I had never thought of that. Yeah.
So
yeah, but but I've sung, like, I had a project in the past it was just basically called Ingrid's Dirty Songs, or Ingrid Sings Dirty Songs. It was great. It was like a huge band with a choir and everything, and a full house with it's just to be on that stage and just go like sperm, sperm, glorious sperm, and to just kind of sex is like it's not a taboo in these songs, and the being horny or lusty or whatever, and the female role in it, like, there's no shame, there's no, like, it's just like, oh, here she comes and she's gonna take what she wants, this kind of attitude.
Yep.
Which I loved. So I did the dirty songs for a very long time with a folk tonation. And then so that was partly finding old stuff, digging it up, but also writing my own. And I also wrote a lot of these needvise. So it's like basically a roast or a slander about other people, but they really loved it. Like, I'm here to tell you that you suck.
And then it's a competition often, right?
Yeah, it's a competition. So it's like, I mean, I guess like rap is kind of in the same category, like, you know, from that famous movie with Eminem. I don't know anything about rap music, but my point is like, it's this kind of you're just improvising, telling the other person off, basically, in folk music style, which I love. So yeah, that was a pretty long answer, but I think that I was kind of liked for being that person that would get up on the table and just kind of have a go at it, you know? And then, you know, get people to join in singing bad words.
Beautiful.
But then now I can't do that anymore because I'm a grown-up.
Why? Who says?
My let's not get into that, but let's say I have developed I still do it sometimes in secret.
I was like, when are you ever gonna stop singing dirty songs? What happened?
Well, you know, it used to be like kind of on a stage in front of a lot of people. Now it's more like in closed circles.
Okay, so you have to be lucky. Maybe around the bonfire at the Midgardsblot one year, you'll.
Absolutely. And I mean, I did do this dirty song concerts on this kind of festivals too. So it's a possibility, just like no phones allowed, no filming, no putting it online. Yeah, and also, you know, I was a village idiot, like Lord of the Rings fan, rode around in a fucking elf dress on my white horse, you know. I'm a nerd. It's just the nerd of being and then this kind of folk music, medieval music kind of just comes with the package of being a nerd, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a nerd too, Maria. Just fucking admit it.
I did live role
you dressed up as a vampire.
Yeah, I was more into the whole vampire. You know, I was a goth.
Yeah, me too.
How surprising. And yeah, in case you guys can't see on your screen, I'm literally, you know, my back wall is just the map of Galarian and Middle Earth.
Oh yeah, look at that.
That's my.
I was going to say earlier.
Yeah.
I was going to say earlier when you said like that we both come from Borja, you know, where Midgardsblot is. I was going to explain like, you know, Game of Thrones, the map, like Maria is from like, you know, and I'm like from Winterfell. And then, you know, I was going to explain, but I thought maybe it was too nerdy, but now I understand it's not.
Not on a musicology podcast. You're not going to get too dorky for that. All right. You trust me. So to connect some dots is, so it seems like to me, there's something about this music for both of you where it's sort of its honesty. Or an English word, austerity would be probably my favorite word to use for it. A rawness to it that is attractive to both of you, and at least to me, I can agree with that because it just seems like there's so many walls up today with like how we present ourselves, and there's always these politics of you know, just like Ingrid, you were just talking about, you know, you don't do it in public anymore, and if you do, no phones, no recording, where it seems like there's so many barriers between us and other people viewing us like in an honest way. And at least to me, this music has always been a really powerful way to sort of break down the pretense of having all of these social obligations and contracts that are tied to today, and instead sort of practice a music or listen to a music that isn't afraid of being honest or raw emotionally. And then also, Maria, I love that your story kind of starts with the djembe, because I actually assistant teach West African drumming here at CU. Every Monday night, I'm teaching kids how to play the djembe, sogo, palogo. And yeah, I'm very fortunate enough. We have a very prominent West African drummer here in Denver who teaches that class. So every Monday night, I am over the moon to be learning from this guy. So I lit up when you said djembe. But yeah, so all of this, it's a lot to think about, especially for those listening. And I guess we should segue into that medieval question, because, you know, again, just to clarify, right? It is picking your battles with the words that we use. I do this all the time with Viking music, right? So, but I would actually much rather have you guys sort of talk about your perspective on why it isn't great or accurate even to call it medieval music, because I think that would be way more enjoyable than to have me sort of like make a video telling people what words to use. I would love to hear from you guys your perspective on why you sort of cringed a little bit when I referred to it as medieval music. Maria, you were chomping at the bit when I said that before. If you want to, please, the mic is yours.
Well, I'm curious to hear. I'm gonna answer something, and then I'm curious to hear Ingrid, because we actually didn't discuss this between us. But the thing, the way
we just know.
But the thing that makes me cringe is that exactly what you said earlier, Jameson, about the barriers are like fully up in the medieval time. There is so many taboos. You are not allowed to dance. You're not allowed to sing in a specific way. There is a lot of rules that is being brought in by, sorry to say, but Christianity came with a lot of expectations on how you were to behave. And I think that puts
There's no like,
no, you were not. No one was jerking off. No one had sex before marriage. No one danced naked on the moonshine.
Well, they did, but they were not allowed to sing about it,
Exactly. So everything had to happen in the hidden. Especially in Nordic countries, we have so many stories of folk instruments being burned on the pyre because it was the devil's music. And this is just, for any music lover, it's a horror story. Like, it's, how can anyone, like the Hardangerfele, the Norwegian
fiddle.
The fiddle, it's such a precious, expensive, and extremely beautiful instrument, and they were being destroyed by the thousands. And
also the frame drums,
Yeah, the Sami, and lots of the Sami traditional instruments, of course. So a lot of shit starts in the medieval times.
But even the fiddle burning was as late as the 1800s.
Yeah,
well, it's it's the thing. It's like when you see someone sing and dance like they're possessed by the devil, you need to stop it, because we're supposed to be dressed in this, and we're supposed to do this fucking stupid dance and behave.
Yes.
Oh, you're reaching something in you that gives you direct contact to the divine or whatever. Let's stop it. Let's put this priest, this guy in the middle. And we tell you that you need to actually talk to God or whatever through that man. So we take away music and dancing and the wild and free folk music. And then you can sit down and play these fucking notes.
Because it's I wanted cards on the table. My research at the moment is entirely focused on the Hardanger fiddle's relationship to both trolls and death rituals.
Cool.
And so like, you are speaking my language right now with all this. So I'm sorry, Maria, I was very sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point out for those listening that it even wasn't just the medieval period. Like, just 150 years ago, we were burning those fiddles because they were the devil's instrument.
Yeah. And sad times indeed. And we have luckily progressed from that now. But there is still something that I have this aversion in me. And according to some clairvoyant people I've met on my path, I have a history in past lives, which is...
I have a history of getting in trouble?
This is the place to get in trouble.
Right, exactly. So but what was I going to say? Yeah, but there is, working with Songleikr, there is some tunes that we can't avoid because they are also really, really beautiful. But we have allowed ourselves to alter the lyric slightly. So instead of saying he delivered his soul to God, we say he delivered his soul to the gods. And, small things
it has to be inclusive,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but I think you will never hear us sing like full-blown Christian ballads, but I can absolutely appreciate the choral harmonics that came with Christian music. There is a lot of beauty there, and definitely a feeling of reaching something divine through the harmonies. So I'm not, being a music lover, you cannot just shy away from a whole several hundred years of period of music, of course not. But you can choose what you want to focus on yourself. And for me, and also I know for Ingrid as well, the freedom of expression has been our main focus in everything we do. And Ingrid.
Yeah, you're very clever, so I don't know if I have much to add, but
why did the tone make that seem like an insult?
Very clever.
Oh, I feel safe with her, so I know she.
No, I love it. No, I love it
that way.
I love it.
She's used to me. No, but I mean, I kind of generally have a problem with that. We have to, like, why do we refer to the past so much when we're talking about the modern music that we make? Because I don't see myself making Viking medieval. I make modern Norwegian folk music with also sometimes English lyrics. I make modern folk music. I pick and choose from what I want, and then yes, some people who went to school for 5 years to study folk music or medieval music, they're gonna say that me and Maria, they don't like, we pick and choose and we do world music and we're like, not true to the genre or whatever, I don't give a shit. I make modern folk music. It's taking the best from the concept, but adapting it to the modern ears, the modern audience, and whatever the modern people need to hear. Also in, what we're conveying with our project in other ways. So, but yeah, I agree with the other things that Maria said.
Yeah, I know you are very into the folk music, because I think the other day you shared a post on Instagram and you had Dalla Copa as the music for it, and it has been so long since I had seen that band name come up. Do you want to say a little bit more about your interactions with the current generation of folk musicians, not with the pretense that you're gonna have some fighting words or anything like that, but as someone who is engaged with folk musicians that's also doing something like Songleikr. I play with a traditional Swedish dance group here in Boulder, and they're from an older generation that does tend to be very gatekeepy. And I do have to, bite my tongue, pick and choose. Again, pick your battles when I'm playing with them, because I'm also learning from them. So I know what it can be like, if I show them this band Songleikr, and if I were to dare call it Nordic folk music, there might be some like uncomfortable shuffling around. So I have some context to this, but Ingrid, if you want to talk a little bit more about sort of that interaction between what you guys are doing and what is also called traditional folk music, I would love to hear it.
I don't really hang out with those people, not because I don't like them, just because we don't do the same thing. Like, gotcha. I respect what they're doing and they can do that, but I don't do that. Songleikr is also kind of fairy tale pop, So like, if someone, like, when people ask me, people who don't like know a lot about me or Maria, and just like, you sing in a band, what is it? I would say it's fairy tale pop. I don't even classify it as folk music, but it depends on who I'm talking to, really. And there's no like shame in that for me. It's it's recorded in a very professional studio. Christopher spent a lot of time working on the music. There's harmonies, there's what's it called, reverb, I don't know in English, but there is it's produced in a way that you would produce a modern pop. I not pop, but you get what I mean. The point is, like, it's not really important to me in a way to belong to this group or that group, or I just kind of do my own thing, and then I collaborate with musicians who are fun and playful, and that's Maria, and it's also a lot of other people. But like, do your thing. I don't know. I can enjoy like really good folk music at like proper music too.
Yeah.
What about you, Maria?
Yeah, absolutely, and very well put, Ingrid. You are also a very smart girl, and I love to hear you talk about this from your aspect, because Yeah. Fun fact, Jameson. This is only the second interview that we do in Songleikr's history. So Ingrid and me are maybe also discovering some things about each other that we didn't have time to fully...
We just took it for granted that I just think we kind of agree, because that's when you get a successful cooperation with someone, is that when you're just on the same page, right?
Yeah. And I have deep respect for traditional folk musicians, because they have spent thousands of hours mastering the instruments, and in their respect, like, we are complete amateurs. I just, I barely can make a sound out of the yohiko, which is such a complicated Finnish instrument hanging on the wall behind me. But yeah, I adore listening to it. I also adore it when I meet traditional folk musicians who are willing to share their knowledge and to jam. I think both Ingrid and me, we come from a jam culture, because we grew up around the fireplace on Viking markets in Norway, and we're used to being allowed to try and fail, and sometimes it's something glorious is happening, and we're all awestruck by the beauty and grandness of this epic drum jam or whatever we conjure up, and sometimes it fails. But if you enter a traditional folk music jam, you are expected to deliver. You have to know the specific beats and the specific tonalities and the specific tunes. So I often feel, of course, because I don't come from that from that environment. So of course I feel humbled and a lesser musician in those constellations. So I think, equal kids play best. Is that an English expression as well?
Like, I don't think you should feel like a lesser musician though. You just do something else. I mean, they could never do what you do. Not in the studio, not on stage, but they're great at what they do. And so it's just, I think it's just very important. It's a very important conversation, because in this scene, there's a lot of things being referred to as folk music, which it's not really folk music like in the traditional standard scholar way, the scholar way. But anyway, we do folk music because it's coming from fucking people and it's for people. And it's less rules, it's fun, it's playful.
Are you familiar with Duke Ellington's famous quote, all music is folk music, I ain't heard no horse play no tune?
I think you said something similar once, like, well, it's music if it's coming from people, right? Or something. I think I remember you saying it's a bit simplified to put it like that, because you need to be some kind of musicians to make music, kind of. But I don't know. It's like I generally shy away from people who are pretentious, rigid, stick up their ass, arrogant, like my way of doing things is the only right way. Like I just sent like this really long voice message to Maria like a couple of weeks ago, where I was just like, fuck, I hate it when they always say like, but the guitar is tuned in a C. You have to sing in a C. And I'm like, I want to sing in the tune that just comes. That's even too. I'm an anarchist. No, I can also sing a song in just the C.
Yeah. I was going to say, don't downplay yourself here.
Yep.
Because,
no, that wasn't downplaying. It was just
but you know your language, you know your music language, but you also
it comes from here, you know.
Yeah, but you also break free from it if you feel that it's right, and that is maybe the untamed, raw version that we have allowed ourselves to be, and either people can like it and have fun with it, or if they don't, then they don't have to listen. It's that simple.
Yep.
Exactly, like but just go do something else.
You guys really have no idea how much I appreciate you being so open to talk about this, because even though this whole conversation wasn't really on the plan, this is why I hate plans, because this is better. Being
your
a Nordic...
questions sucked anyway.
They did, right? So the being a Nordic music channel, right? Not defining myself by a genre, but rather a region, right? And a cultural heritage. I know for a fact that actually a lot of traditional folk musicians, just from talking to them, no, they don't even register this what we Viking music on their radar, right? Because it's just not even in their sphere of what they know.
They think it's cringy.
I know they do, but and then the problem happens, right? Is so I on this channel, traditional folk music meets this other kind of music that typically non-Scandinavians will call Nordic folk music. And it's been a very weird position for myself being sort of this demilitarized zone where both of these genres are actually interacting in a way that they typically haven't before in the same place. And so I actually see between people talking to me in person from either side of the debate because they don't want it in writing, or just from the comments people leave on the videos that I do on traditional Nordic folk music, is there seems to be this divide that no one talks about between what is typically called traditional Nordic folk music and the popular music that other people will call Nordic folk. And the weird thing is for me is that I'm an American. And so a lot of times I feel weird.
Is that weird?
It is a strange, who am I? Is sitting here and actually having to, people like actually listen to my opinion on things where I'm like, I'm not Nordic, this is weird. That's why I really appreciate you guys showing me that this conversation is as complicated as it seems from where I am. Because even though we do want to have this idealistic perspective that genre doesn't matter, it does. And we've always had genres. We've always had styles of music. You know, back in the day, the different dance forms from Norway's dance tradition, those were called genres. The pulse was a genre, and we would use these words to communicate what we are talking about. So we do need words. But Nordic folk is in this really weird position now that bands like Heilung and Vardruna have made this acoustic Nordic sound so popular.
I would never call Heilung Nordic folk, though.
People do.
Heilung is something else.
People do, and I feel like I'm the gatekeeper. I feel like I'm the gatekeeper, and worse, the American gatekeeper, when I try and point out to people it's not really Nordic folk, but then people are like, oh, what do you know? And I pick my battles, but you know, I've filibustered long enough at this point. But I guess if any of you guys really have anything more to say on this conversation of Nordic folk between the traditional and what YouTube will label as Nordic folk, and it's, you know, a bunch of Vikings beating drums, right? I would really, really love to hear any further conversation on that, because this is a huge part of the channel right now.
Yeah, I mean, my sympathies to you, dear gatekeeper, because this is a complicated task you've set yourselves on.
It matters to me, so I guess I'm a masochist.
Yeah, you must be.
Yeah.
But you just open your Spotify right now, and I have some of our music have been added to this huge playlist called Nordic Folk, Nordic Spiritual Folk.
I know the playlist you're talking about.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's everything there. I mean, Aurora is there.
We are thinking about the same exact playlist. Yep.
Right? Songleikr is more Aurora, though. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I don't, because Aurora is pop. It's atmospheric, modern.
With her voice, you know, the way. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. Please continue, Maria.
We'll put a pin in it.
Yeah. Sorry?
I said we'll put a pin in it. It's in English. I don't know if that translates well. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but this playlist.
No, I don't know if I have because that's a conversation for a whole other, like, maybe even have like a discussion forum, maybe invite some
seminar. I see a seminar coming up. Great.
Yes, a webinar.
Maria, you can have the channel. You can do it.
Yeah. I mean,
seminar at our farm.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Now we're going to stop. Please continue, Maria.
It would be really, really interesting to hear some more opinions on this, because you are absolutely right. We need words to describe what we're doing. And I feel also that the word folk has been it's been a bit misguided, because my theory is that American folk music have always been something else than European folk music. European folk music have been a more tradition based in how to even put that into words. But you were nodding, so I think you
it has more of a history. There are two important things. There's the fact that American folk music is this gumbo of all of these different traditions, but I think what's more relevant to what you're saying, to put this into context for anyone listening, is Bob Dylan reinvented the way that folk music is talked about. Bob Dylan, he redefined how people use the word folk, and that sort of is why nowadays folk is almost used interchangeably with acoustic. And
that's a very good point. I think that's
muddy.
Yeah, it has the authentic acoustic element to it, down to earth.
Yeah,
not
and
overproduced
Bob Dylan never would have said that his music is traditional, but people call it folk because it was a part of the 60s, 70s hippie folk revival movement. And even today,
but then I understand even less. Like, if that's the premise, which I love that premise, I can agree to that premise. You know, like folk music it's more organic, it's more whatever. Heilung, on the other hand, is absolutely not in that category for me. Heilung is awesome, it's great, and it's new. Like, it's something people didn't hear before it came.
Do you know what Chris started calling us? Hippie drum circle on steroids.
It is. I've always thought of it as just rave music, but on drums. Like,
that's how
I market it to my students.
Sometimes it's like a German BDSM dungeon with like crazy shit going on. Like but it's very like atmospheric and
Beautiful. But Maria, I want to hand it back off to you, because I did what you pitched it to me to say more about the folk word, right? But please pick it up from where you were.
Yes and no, because I think that this demands like a whole other thing.
We're drawing a line here, I think, because we need to more time to think about it before we say anything more.
I agree.
Also, and it's a super fascinating topic. Like, what is folk music? What defines our genres today? Do we need some more descriptive words to describe what we're actually doing, so that we can
neo-folk
and understand what we're actually saying? Like, I love folk music, and then somebody else from the other side of the pond is like, yeah, me too, and then we meet on a party and we have completely different playlists.
Someone brings a hardanger fiddle and someone brings like a Maria mask, and they're like, wait, what were you talking about? This is what I was talking. But I don't know the term neo-folk. We had the term neo-folk, and now no one uses it anymore. I thought that was the perfect word for it, but I feel like I'm the only one that feels that way.
I think the neo word is kind of it's giving me a lot of associations to other things.
Yes, that's the problem with it.
That's maybe like it's maybe I just fucking modern folk. I don't know. Neo is new, right? New folk. Okay, let's go to the next topic.
Please. Let's make a handshake that we do a webinar where we invite some bright minds. Maybe, Einar Selvik, Ivor, Jameson, you could host it. Ingrid and me will be there. We'll just have a blast talking about this.
It would really be great, because, as I said, I actually started having this conversation when I started doing videos for the channel on traditional folk. And I found that when you go to YouTube and search Nordic folk, it takes a lot of scrolling. Actually, Amalia is the first person that comes up. That is actually something I'd be like, finally, there we go. It's one of her videos of her playing the nyckelharpa in the woods. And that is 1,000 times more Nordic folk than the first things that come up. And I went on a very small rant about it in the video, and it ended up being what people wanted to talk about, but also fight about. And to this day, I realized that there was a friction that I think shouldn't be kicked under the rug and should be talked about more, but at a future time, especially because I've already had you guys on here for quite a while. So I guess we will put a pin in that whole folk music conversation. I feel very vindicated knowing that you guys also think it's a worthwhile conversation, and I'm not just being the dorky musicologist that's like, no, we need to talk about it.
No, we agree.
All right, cool. So I guess this might overlap quite a bit, but the question that I did want to ask, especially for you two, because you have been in the scene for decades, you have sort of seen how it's transformed over the years, from essentially, I say, before the Vikings TV series to after the Vikings TV series. The place that Nordic culture and Nordic imagery and identity has had in mainstream culture has blown up. So I guess I would love to hear sort of what has it been like for you guys, especially, you know, Maria, living or growing up right across the street from where Midgardsblot is now. Do you have any commentary or any reflections on sort of what it's been like seeing this thing blow up, and what changes have you really noticed, and how, maybe not even changes, but I guess how it has over time developed from this thing that a bunch of hippies would do in Buddha around the bonfire to being sort of this like worldwide mainstream phenomenon.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think it has put focus on the topic of roots and heritage. So this has become something that people feel more confident about addressing. And I believe that's a positive thing in most circumstances. I believe in appreciating each other's cultures. I think it's wonderful to see people experimenting with different aspects of our history and finding some way of connecting to wearing this and this outfit, going to this and this event, listening to this and this music. Whatever makes you feel good and happy, you should basically do it. I'm a huge believer in that philosophy of you know, choosing your own happiness and following that. But that said, it's also a little seed of sadness in it when I meet especially Americans who are born and raised in the US and feel so disconnected to their own country that they would rather say that, oh, I took this DNA test and it actually shows that I am this and this
5% Norwegian.
Yeah. And by all means, it's wonderful to whatever makes your clock tick and makes you feel proud. But I feel a certain sadness of also not taking some of your own the grounds where you were born with you. Why not say, yeah, I'm born American, but I feel really connected to this culture. I would love to explore it more. And because I meet many people who are like, oh, are you from Norwegian? Are you from Norway? Oh, I'm Norwegian. And then I say, oh, cool. Then we can speak the same language. And I'm like, no, I have like 33%, and my grandmother's grandmother was from Norway. And then I'm like, okay, but you've never traveled even out from the US. Isn't that a bit, that becomes a bit sad. So that's the only thing where I see a pop culture kind of being so, people are so like a star, what's the expression? They look at it with so much adorness, or I don't know how to describe this, but
starry-eyed,
you know what I mean?
Starry-eyed would be
starry-eyed. Yeah. The Vikings, they're so cool. I feel so connected, which is beautiful, but we don't all have to be it in a way. It's cool. It's okay to be fascinated by something.
Yeah, I completely agree on two accounts. First, when I first started doing this thing, a lot of people, the first question they would ask me is, oh, are you Nordic? And no, I'm not at all. It's just something about, you know, it just being raised on Lord of the Rings and Skyrim, and then and all these different things that have Vikings in the DNA of them. It was just like, it would have been weird if I didn't end up with a fascination for Nordic things. But then the most beautiful music I ever heard as a teenager was the traditional nyckelharpa playing. And so I developed just an adoration for it that has now brought me to this weird journey of life through Nordic music. But also, your point is very well taken that Americans are definitely feeling disconnected from our own heritage. And And that's just because things are weird, man. Things are weird here. And that would be also a whole other conversation. But, you know, I am also seeing, living in a place where bluegrass is very popular, and especially all along the Rocky Mountains, country and bluegrass are huge right now. And I am seeing some overlap from the roots scene over in Europe, you know, the way that bands like Heilung or Vardruna will talk about heritage and you really consciously think about what it means through music. I am seeing that actually start to become more popular in country and bluegrass music. There's the mainstream stuff that will always have a veneer on it, but it's in the indie artists. I have a banjo project that I do that I explicitly want to make people think, is this American or is this Nordic? And so far, it's very confusing in a way that I love to people. They always ask, you know, what part of this is what? But it's that very thing of what you're saying. And this is the step that I look forward to seeing more people make, is take that adoration, take that starry-eyed perspective of Nordic culture that everyone who goes to see Vardruna or Heilung at Red Rocks has. But know that that's not only tied to Nordicness. You can take that same philosophy of rootedness and heritage and, you know, admiring your ancestors or you know, nature spirits or anything. It doesn't have to be Nordic to be valid. And I point that out all the time, that American culture, we are the culture that gave the world transcendentalism, Thoreau, all these incredible writers that made people look at the natural world with wonder for the first time in forever. There's these beautiful things in American culture that could be treated with the same respect and admiration that Heilung and Vardruna and all of these bands are giving to the Nordic side of things. But what I really love about what all of you guys are doing is that you are posing that question that is making other people sort of carry on through their lives, asking that question. Is like, what is meaningful? Where do I come from? Am I happy with the way things are today? And what can I do about it, or what can I express through music, maybe? Because music is what's really speaking to people the most right now, as it always has been. But that was my very long response to what you said, because this is stuff that I think about all the time as an American who studies this Nordic stuff. Is there's this
entire conversation,
please, Ingrid.
The entire conversation we're having now is basically for privileged people with roots, or the ability to go get some roots. You know, it's it's a very, very complex topic, because I am extremely lucky and privileged, because I was just born with roots. And when and Maria as well, and probably you. It's there is a lot of people who had their roots ripped away.
100%.
Destroyed by people with our skin color. I'm sorry to say. And then white Americans looking for roots. Great. Okay, I'm fine with that. I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about it like this, but I've had a couple of experiences talking about roots with people who they're deeply depressed because they don't have these roots, and especially like indigenous people. They basically have no way of reclaiming what was lost to them, whilst I fucking swim in it every day, you know. But it's true, and I'm not saying that to brag, but we could come across as a bit braggy if we're sitting here talking about how splendid it is to have these roots, you know. And then there are the people who, like, I don't know, I'm not like an expert in American history, but it's a young nation, right? A little bit. There's, like you said, a lot of things going on there. So rootlessness is something else than having had your roots ripped away. So it's two different things. We need to like separate them.
Absolutely.
The rootlessness is causing so much pain. And these people who seek let's just call it healing, you know, because that's like a part of healing yourself, self-development, whatever, is finding some kind of roots. And if that's clinging on to Vikings, I'm fine with that. There's enough space. There's like, I don't have copyright to Vikings, so feel free. They also raped people. I just want to mention that. Killed a lot of people, stole shit, and basically 1% of the population were free people, and it was the men. And then, you know, they had slaves. But I mean, if it floats your boat, go on. I think it's more about being super fascinated by nature, space, freedom, being in tune, being authentic with yourself. That's the Viking thing they're fascinated by, I think. This kind of rawness, this kind of back to nature. I can survive on my own potatoes. I don't know. This image of that person that you could be if you just found those roots, you know? But it's just a very complex topic, because it's so easy to and not even offend, like hurt people, because you never know why they don't have roots or feel happy with the roots they have.
And by all means, I meant no harm in...
I know you don't. I know you don't.
Yeah. I just wanted to express that I feel sad for people who are obviously being raised in a place, but feel so ashamed or so estranged from that place that they feel like they have to look somewhere completely different to find somewhere they feel at home. But that this is, of course, like it's a huge topic, and yeah, it just my heart go out to we've been pouring so much in the US. I've completely fell in love with the country and its people. I see the troubles that you're having, and it's heartbreaking. And if more people can find some joy by listening to Nordic folk music then and feeling connected to that, then oh my gosh, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
We understand why Americans are feeling the way you're feeling, not just because of what's going on in politics, but I mean, what the fuck are you guys doing? It's
fucking no. I'm literally the meme of that dog in the room that's on fire. But instead of saying this is fine, I'm sort of asking, like, what is happening? Like, you know, it's anyway, but that would be a whole other conversation. But that's pretty much been my whole voting life so far. But the more important thing is, if we do want to sort of like start to move towards wrapping the conversation up before we start opening even more thorny topics that would take hours to even start talking about. I want to put a little bow on the conversation about the Nordic folk thing, just to say that I think, Maria, what you said earlier about the dedication that the folk musicians put into their art, and these traditions, and how long these traditions have survived, especially in Norway, when they survive in spite of those in power wanting it to disappear. At least for me, I just wanted to say that I can see why, to people who practice that tradition that is Nordic folk music, can turn around and see other things labeled Nordic folk and maybe feel a little like, you know, what's happening here? This isn't what we've been doing. But I just wanted to put the sort of end of that conversation on an open end to say that, like, the reason I think it matters is because of that dedication that you talked about earlier, and just the very deep-rooted history in that tradition and all that has gone into keeping it alive matters. And it's why that, at least I think that it's important that we talk about these sorts of things. But guys, I guess at the risk of this opening up another 30 minutes or whatever, I'm going to ask a very hopefully innocuous question.
You have a time limit? Is it like...
No, I don't know. I don't want to hold you guys hostage on Zoom. I know I was a student when Zoom came around. I remember sitting on here for 2 hours being like, oh God, when is this going to end? The last thing I want to do is hold you guys prisoner here. But I definitely do want to ask...
I just need to walk my dog in a not super long, but besides that.
Yeah. So I do appreciate that. But is there anything next for Songleikr, without pressuring you guys into saying anything specific? You guys have one album that we all love, but we would love some more. If you could say anything, you tease it or anything, but Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You looking at me, Ingrid?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll try to say something smart about it because we have so many new beautiful songs for you guys. And they are actually, most of them have been recorded. And I am blown away, especially by Ingrid's contribution to this project. It's some tunes there. And we were able to play one of them as the last song in our set at Midgardsblot.
Oh, that's right. That wasn't Christopher's dad wrote a song, but that wasn't that one, was it?
That wasn't that one.
Okay.
No, that's the acoustic one.
Yeah.
No, we were able to pre-premiere one of the new songs. But the thing is that there's a lot going on with Heilung, and we have barely seen our studio. We managed to find the time to do the recordings, but we have to very, very carefully look at the time to finish the production of them, because it's simply it doesn't do anyone any good of stressing this through. I've tried with other projects where you go like, oh yeah, let's just get this done, and then you end up with a mix that you don't like and you have to redo it, and then some of the initial spark disappeared. So it's something about treating it gently and allowing the time to be right for it to happen. And Ingrid also has a lot of projects. You're kind of also you don't
I kind of I let's just say I gave up and I'm gonna do my own thing. No. No, it's that I completely understand, and there's absolutely it's not really a problem, because you know, I don't do music like that. So if they're busy, they're busy, and the album will come when it's ready.
Absolutely.
But I'm doing some of my own things, and let's see what happens.
Sounds great. That's the perfect little teaser.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, Ingrid, if it takes super, super, super long to finish the album, we could maybe do some acoustic video recordings of us singing some things at one point.
Yes, we could do that too. Like we can. There's a lot of people asking, which is nice. But maybe like ask more, like pressure us into. I don't know.
On one hand, it's ready when it's ready, and on the other hand, it's pressure us.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like I don't really know. It's just life just unfolds, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but we want it as much as everyone else. Let's just say it like.
Of course. Yeah. So, guys, it has been really great having you guys on the Nordic Sound. A lot of the conversations that we had today have overlapped with I just had Maria Boine on here a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot that we've talked about that overlapped with things that she was talking about, especially with that rootlessness conversation. I actually just hosted a talk with Einar here at CU, and that also talked about a lot that we were talking about here today.
It's like, I'm sorry, I just have to say something. Like, it's funny now with the Sami people, like, who's laughing now? You know? They're like, with the drum roots and fucking, like, not all of them, of course. There's still a lot of trauma and tragedy, but some, like Maria Boine, or there's also a lot of other not only artists, but a lot of really good public voices within the Sami community.
Absolutely.
In Scandinavia, that are just now suddenly it's like a little bit cool to be Sami.
It's just like and I will say this, in the States right now, all of the brown people in the States are saying it's real sexy to be brown right now. So there is a lot of that.
I agree.
So
finally,
boring to be white, right?
So
no, it's not, but you get my point.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess the reason that what I'm building up to is to really thank you guys for not only taking the time out of, if you guys are already fighting to do music, to take an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to talk to me about just all these random topics that are all loosely related through music and Songleikr. I really appreciate you guys.
Oh, but we love it. We really love it. Like it's interesting and nice, and then you're a nice person, so you know that's good.
I try. I'm glad I redeemed myself from completely butchering your name at the beginning of this. But I do really appreciate you guys not only making the time, but then also feeling open enough to talk about these things that I do really feel like are important to talk about. Is there any last comments that you guys want to make before we wrap up and I let you guys go? Whoever wants to take the floor.
I feel we've been touching on so many cool conversations. I'm very grateful for the mental journey through from childhood to modern, and for the future. I would just maybe encourage people to sing more songs around the fire, whatever they are, and be proud of proud of yourself for doing that.
I agree. And I mean, I love that our music in Heilung is inspiring people to seek out roots, or to notice that something is missing, you know, like you said, asking the right questions, because a lot of people are walking around asking the wrong questions, you know?
Or no questions. Just no
or
thoughts.
no questions, but you know, have a little faith.
Yeah.
So like the wrong questions, but like I think that Heilung especially, it kind of hits straight to the core. Like it makes you feel something. Oh my God, what's wrong? What's missing? You know.
But we are a world tribe. Heilung doesn't belong in any one culture.
Exactly.
And everyone is welcome. I love that concept. I just also have to mention the project we did, which was called Amplified Your History, which is basically like whatever you find in your own history that you want to put some spotlight on, do it and feel proud.
Not the rape part though, right?
No, you know,
ideally not.
No, but this comes from a good heart, you know. Heilung is about healing. Fucking project is called Healing. So I just I mean, I think this is what we need to cure this pain. We need people to find those roots in their own way, and then be proud of whatever they do find. And if it's not specifically from where you're actually from or whatever, I don't know. I'm fine with it. But didn't you finish the last interview, Maria, with saying something like, if you feel it, you own it, or something?
If you feel it, it's yours.
If you feel it, it's yours. I like that.
I like that too.
But be respectful. Just kind of.
Yeah, true.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on, huh?
Agreed.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well,
thank you so much for having us, Jameson.
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for making the time and for the great conversation. Just stick around after I click the end record button, all right?
All right.
All right, cool. Take care, guys.